I know, you're shocked too, but pick your jaws up off the floor because Bowers and Wilkins sent us another product. Let's take a look at their brand new Panorama 3 soundbar. Before we get started, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club that delivers premium goods and products like outdoor gear, home and kitchenware, clothing, even drink kits from under-the-radar brands and small businesses based on your very own personal tastes. Take Bespoke Post's simple preference quiz to get paired up with cool products month after month. Every box has a value of $70, but costs you far less. Best of all, you get to preview your box before it ships, so you can decide if you want to keep it, swap it out for a different box, or skip the month entirely at no charge. Now, two of my favorite Bespoke boxes are the Waft and Salute kits. The Waft kit is a complete unfunk your home package. It comes with a premium scented candle, incense, scent cards, and a concrete match set, perfect for keeping your whole home smelling fresh. If you're a fan of margaritas, the Salute kit is essentially happy hour in a box for two. It includes everything that you need for the perfect margarita. Just bring your own tequila and fresh citrus. To get 20% off your first box, go to bespokepost.com/Robinson20 or use the link in the description and the coupon code Robinson20 at checkout. Thanks to Bespoke Post for sponsoring this video, and now, back to it. The Panorama 3 is a complete 3.1.2 Dolby Atmos system contained within a single soundbar, as in no separate subwoofer or satellite speakers required, or even offered, at least not at this time. The Panorama 3 features 13 total drivers, including 3 titanium dome tweeters, 6 woven mid-range drivers, 2 bass drivers, and 2 upward-firing Atmos drivers. The entire bar is powered by a 400-watt internal amplifier, which, along with the speaker's driver complement, give it a reported frequency response of 43 Hz to 48 kHz. The Panorama 3 is designed to be rather plug and play, and as a result, you're not going to find a ton of inputs. The bar has a single HDMI input featuring eARC supporting discrete Dolby Atmos signals as well as Dolby True HD. There's an optical audio input and an Ethernet port. You're also going to find a USB-C input, but it is for service only. While there aren't many physical inputs, you can connect to the bar wirelessly using Bluetooth, which is Bluetooth 5 Class 2 spec. There's also AirPlay 2 and Alexa support. Now, fans of music services like Spotify will be happy to see the inclusion of Spotify Connect. Now, you can stream music directly to the bar with services like Tidal, Deezer, and Qobuz natively from the Bowers and Wilkins music app. And it's inside the app that you can make some adjustments to the Panorama 3's sound, as it has treble and bass tone controls. Sadly, there are no adjustments for things like individual channel level or dialogue enhancements, nor does the Panorama 3 support features like auto room correction at this time. And getting up and running using the app is pretty straightforward, especially for Apple device users like myself. Connecting the Panorama 3 to our Wi-Fi network was about as stress-free as I think that I have experienced from a modern component, so props to Bowers and Wilkins there. On the whole, the app is functional, but it is incredibly simple, and it cannot be ignored that the Panorama is lacking some functionality customers have reasonably come to expect from soundbars at this price point. Now, in terms of design and build quality, the Panorama 3 is stunning. This is hands down my favorite looking soundbar on the market right now, surpassing even the Bang & Olufsen Biosound Stage. While the Panorama is only available in a black finish, its use of texture and materials, not to mention its relatively lower profile, give it a tailored look that goes a long way in dressing it up and making it visually just more appealing than most all-black soundbars on the market. It looked right at home in our main room below our 85-inch Sony X95J TV, being fed a signal from our Apple TV 4K. Oh, and it comes with a wall mounting solution for those of you who prefer to have the soundbar sit directly below your TV. But enough about its looks. What you really want to know is, how does it sound? The Panorama 3 can sound utterly fantastic, like no other all-in-one soundbar solution that I've heard at this price point. Or it can sound utterly underwhelming. It all really comes down to your choice in source material, so let's break it down. Now, Bowers and Wilkins is known for their music acumen, so as you might expect, I was eager to see how the Panorama 3 performed when listening to some of my favorite 2-channel tracks, because more and more people are turning to soundbar solutions for both music and movies. As a straight 2-channel speaker, listening to true stereo mixes, I am afraid to say that I was not impressed. Not that the Panorama 3 sounded bad, but it was decidedly monaural and lacking in any real sense of space bass. Sadly, because the bar cannot be adjusted, for example, you can't convert a stereo mix into, say, Dolby Surround to coax some of that spaciousness into existence, stereo tracks like Metallica's Enter Sandman or Drifting by Two Lanes sounded far too constrained. So while I heard every note, the Panorama 3 failed to live up to its name. Sadly, there was nothing resembling a three-dimensional soundstage. But then I selected the Dolby Atmos playlist on Apple Music and whoa. First, let me just say that I typically hate music mixed in Dolby Atmos. Most tracks sound more gimmicky than musical, but the Panorama 3 just might get me to change my tune when it comes to Dolby Atmos music. Listening to Norah Jones's album Come Away With Me in Atmos was bite the back of your hand good. No, you know what? Scratch that. It was great. First of all, the bar's sound completely transformed our room. The front wall of our main room sounded as if my left and right main speakers, center channel, and overhead in-ceiling Atmos channels had suddenly been activated. To say the Panorama 3 can pull off a convincing 3.1.2 channel performance would be an understatement. I haven't heard lateral and vertical spaciousness like this from a single bar since my first time hearing the Sennheiser Ambio. When fed an Atmos signal, the Panorama 3 absolutely sounds like a quality 2-channel setup. I hands down preferred it to Bowers and Wilkins' own 600 Anniversary Series speakers when compared head-to-head in our main room. There is just an effortless quality to the Panorama sound when listening to Dolby Atmos mixed music. There was no trace of forwardness in the vocal range, something that you know I've been critical of lately when it comes to Bowers and Wilkins. Not to say the Panorama is laid back. It's not. It's detailed and nuanced without being forceful or peaky. It does have a mildly leaner tone throughout the mid-range, but that may be the result of its smaller woofers just not fleshing out the bottom octaves the same way a larger driver can, but that's really my only note as it relates to the mid-range. Honestly, when listening to Norah Jones or Elton John's Rocket Man, the Panorama gave me old school Bowers and Wilkins vibes that I just wasn't prepared for. This is the sound that made me fall in love with the brand all those years ago. Highs were airy and extended without coming across as too sharp or worse, fatiguing. I completely lost track of time and I actually forgot I was listening to a soundbar at all. For an all-in-one solution, the Panorama 3 is respectable in the bass department, but if I had one critique, it would be that the dual bass drivers don't quite deliver all of the visceral impact or dynamic snap, say a good well-recorded kick drum or some synthesized beats can possess. So bass was good, surprising even for an all-inclusive soundbar, but with respect to the bass, you will get more low-end weight and presence from the likes of, say, the Samsung Q950A and its separate powered sub. Now, switching gears to television and movies, the experience was very similar to its 2-channel music performance when I wasn't watching Atmos content. The Panorama 3 could sound just a little bit too directional for my tastes. Make no mistake, the sound quality was always clear and intelligible, but it just sounded, well, small and relegated to the bar itself, barely extending beyond its physical boundaries. Now, I'm hopeful that this could be addressed in a firmware update, or at a minimum, I think if Bowers and Wilkins were to give users the ability to choose, say, a faux surround mode through the app, the spatial quality of non-Atmos mixes would improve. But cue up an Atmos mix film like Spider-Man No Way Home, and once again, the Panorama 3 delivers the goods. Spatially, the Panorama 3 is beyond impressive. Even in our larger room, it had zero problems filling our space with sound. At higher volumes, I could detect the presence of a limiter in some spots, meaning the bar, specifically the bass, would roll off so as not to distort or damage the subs. But at volumes hovering around 80 dB or lower, this slight easing of bass and dynamics, it just wasn't very noticeable. What I was left with was a wholly convincing surround sound experience, one that extended clear overhead and came dangerously close to even surrounding me in a true 360-degree bubble with near discrete speaker accuracy. Dialogue was clear and present and supremely intelligible. More than that, it sounded appropriate with respect to its scale, matching the grandeur of the scene unfolding on screen. Now, some dialogue clarity and or presence could come across as more forward or beamy, but it really does seem mix or mastering specific. For example, the Netflix reality show Selling Sunset. I know. It sounded very harsh, and the characters' voices were incredibly piercing. But when watching the same show on the Q950A from Samsung, I experienced much the same character. So as with anything in sound, it starts with the mix. But can the panorama be revealing of lesser mixes? Yes. Yes, absolutely it can. But when watching quality content, specifically Hollywood feature films or hour-long dramas like The Walking Dead, the Panorama 3 is brilliant. Lastly, highs have terrific sparkle, great extension without being harsh or aggressive, which is something I also noted when listening to music. Honestly, the only major concern that I have, aside from the bar really needing to be fed a true Dolby Surround or Atmos signal for best results, is the fact that when switching from, say, Atmos to stereo or stereo back to Atmos or even Dolby Digital, the bar would sometimes fail to acquire the signal, resulting in no sound, or stranger still, the dialogue stem of the mix not coming through while being able to hear the rest of the mix. In other words, it's as if the center channel isn't connected when this happens. Power cycling the bar would eventually remedy this, but it did happen, and it happened on 2 different TVs. Not sure if a firmware update could fix this or if this is just one of those weird HDMI handshake issues. Nevertheless, it's something you need to keep in mind. At just under $1,000, the Panorama 3 has some stiff competition. While the Q950A, or its replacement, is a little more costly, the Samsung is the better overall bar and potentially the greater value in that it sounds good with damn near any signal it's fed, not to mention has a bit more oomph down low thanks to possessing a separate dedicated subwoofer. Now, the Samsung also has more features and adjustability than the Panorama. That said, with respect to ease of use and simplicity, not to mention design, the B&W has it over the Samsung, in my opinion anyway. In a lot of ways, the Panorama 3 reminded me of our Sonos Beam Gen 2, at least in terms of simplicity and ease of use. Obviously, the Beam Gen 2 is about half the price and sounds surprisingly good, comparable even to the Panorama 3 reviewed here. Now, the Beam is expandable, whereas the B&W is not, at least not right now. Where I believe the Panorama 3 bests the Beam is in larger spaces. The 3 is just more convincing and confident than our Sonos in a large living room. So if you have a larger space or are looking to achieve a more cinematic experience with a tad less strain, the Panorama 3 should be on your list. As for the Arc, still haven't heard it, so I have no idea. Suffice to say, the Sonos app and ecosystem is presently more mature compared to what Bowers and Wilkins currently offers. One other notable all-in-one worth cross-shopping is Bang & Olufsen's BioSound Stage, which is notably more expensive but does a better job like the Sonos when listening to non-Atmos content. But in terms of Atmos content, be it music or movies, the less expensive Panorama 3 is equal to, if not just a little bit better, spatially. That said, you have way more flexibility and customization with the Stage, so if you're one who likes to tweak, spending more for the Bang & Olufsen may be money well spent. The Panorama 3 is an incredible all-in-one Dolby Atmos solution for those of you who may not want to deal with or dive headfirst into the complexities of building out a home theater system. While its simplicity will be seen as a plus for many of you, true enthusiasts will no doubt hold it against Bowers and Wilkins, especially at its more premium price point. While not without competition or shortcomings, I have to say, the Panorama 3 is impressive when fed Atmos or Dolby Surround content, so much so that I think it ranks among the best all-in-one soundbars on the market right now. So that's it. That is now my review of the Bowers and Wilkins Panorama 3 soundbar, but I'm curious what Kristi thought of it.
I think it's gorgeous. I mean, kudos to Bowers and Wilkins for the design. It looks expensive. Well, because it is. And I love that they went beyond the boring cloth-covered soundbars you typically see on the market.
Yeah.
And there were times where I absolutely loved this soundbar. Mm-hmm. And there were times where I was left thinking, huh?
Yeah.
Like, is this thing even on? Like you said, you give it the right content and it's bloody fantastic.
Yeah.
But mm-hmm. in my opinion, mm-hmm. that limitation is not realistic nor reflective of what most people, especially people typically in the market for a soundbar, are going to put up with, much less understand.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, imagine how confusing it might be when you're like watching it, you've got one thing on and it sounds great. You turn it on at something else and it doesn't. And I mean, mm-hmm. even I don't understand how it could sound so amazing in one respect and so meh in others.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah. I agree. And And nothing showcases that more than like when I was listening to Apple Music, and Apple Music will go from stereo to like Atmos if you're like on a shuffle or something like that. And so 1 minute the bar is very constrained stereo, you know, and then the next track comes on and all of a sudden your entire living room is transformed. You want to stay in that transformative space forever because it's so freaking good. But then the track ends, or you watch an older film, or you're watching just a regular old like TV show or whatever that doesn't have surround sound, and suddenly all of that spaciousness just goes right here, you know?
Yeah, it's weird.
It is weird.
It's weird. And honestly, at $1,000, I expect the ability to make more adjustments.
Yeah.
Or at least the ability to choose from different profiles or save my own, which I'm really shocked that they don't give you any options.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing I feel like you left off, or I mean, you kind of said it without saying it, that there are no profiles and that you cannot save any user settings.
No, like I said, you can adjust tone, and those settings will remain until you change them again. And this is something that we did bring up with Bowers and Wilkins. We said, hey, you know, app update in the future, at least give people the ability to maybe have like a music custom preset 1, custom 2, so that at the minimum, if you find that, you know, your tone control settings sound great with non-Atmos content over here, and then you don't need those adjustments for Atmos content, so you can just kind of toggle that on and off. What's interesting to me is Bowers and Wilkins, up until this point, had several apps, and I kind of feel like they've consolidated into one, which is great. That's what they needed to do. But in doing so, they may have just oversimplified things. But I'm confident if they want to. Now, then customer data may prove different. You know, customers may sit there and be like, no, this is perfect. In which case, we're not wrong, but wrong. But yeah, it's if Sonos is like the benchmark, and I do consider it to be the benchmark, even Sonos has managed to making adjustments relatively easy and not technically complicated. And so, yeah, if Sonos can do it at $500, yeah, the Panorama 3 should too.
Yeah. Speaking of Sonos or other comparisons, as far as that goes, I thought that the Samsung Q958 handled regular TV content, like think bad reality TV shows.
Yeah.
And don't let him confuse you or trick you. He freaking loves selling Sunset. In fact, it's usually him. It was you that were the one that noticed the new season, and you got pretty excited about it. It's trashy. It's terrible.
It's terrible,
but it's fun.
Yeah.
But you know, stuff like that. News, you know, standard programming. The sound was far more balanced and
on the Samsung,
and fuller sound.
Yeah,
on the Samsung.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But you know, the Bowers and Wilkins definitely outshines it when you give it the right signal.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, as much as I want to go with a Panorama, I'm not sure that this model is really ready for prime time. At $600, $700, you know, if that was the price point, I would be a lot more forgiving of its limitations. And I get it, you know, Bowers and Wilkins, they would even tell you this themselves, that they are a luxury brand.
Yeah, for sure.
And they charge luxury prices. But I still think they have some ways to go in order to be competitive in a very highly competitive soundbar market.
Oh, without a doubt. They have waded into waters that it's a feeding frenzy, to be perfectly blunt. And I think that they have the right mix. I mean, it's obvious. It's very obvious when listening to the right material that the Panorama 3 is excellent and has the ability to be excellent. So that I think it's a firmware update away from being a Swiss Army knife for a lot of people. But right now, it's like half of the blades are stuck. You know, you need the Phillips head screwdriver, and you can't quite pry it out. You know, it's so close.
It's such a conundrum.
It is.
It's one of the more baffling pieces of hi-fi gear or soundbars, whatever you want to call it, that I feel like we've encountered. The only other thing that I was surprised you didn't bring up was the Bose 900 for about $100 less. I think this is a bar that people are definitely going to be shopping.
Yes, absolutely.
Cross-shopping. So I'm curious, which one would you get. I mean, I'm guessing since you didn't mention it, you're picking the Panorama. I don't know. It's expandable where the B&W isn't.
Yeah.
At least for now. So,
Yeah. No, I
inquiring
honestly,
minds want to know.
I honestly didn't include it because I forgot. I forgot. We review so many products sometimes.
You're not allowed to forget.
Yeah. The 900 is a fantastic bar. It is. And I love it. And I would actually recommend the 900 over the Panorama purely because I know that the Bose sounds great with non-Atmos content. When playing back Atmos content, specifically movies, the Panorama 3 is better than the 900 by itself. It just is. Now, if you add the separate subwoofer and the surrounds that you can tack onto the 900, now we're talking about a different scenario. But at that point, you're now spending way more money than the Panorama. And I kind of think that the Panorama 3 becomes even more impressive. Yes, it is bested by the 900 with a separate subwoofer and satellites, but the Panorama isn't embarrassed in an all-in-one solution. So this is probably the most comparable head-to-head. The Bose is the better current all-around performer. The app is better. The controls are better. But if I was to say I'm going to put these two together, pit these two head-to-head, and just watch Dolby Atmos movies, I'm going Panorama 3. I just am. It does a better job spatially. I cannot stress to you how impressed I was watching Dolby Atmos encoded movies with the Panorama 3. I legitimately forgot that our main system with in-ceiling overheads, those weren't on. That's how good it is. It's just with everything else, it's just a soundbar.
I agree. I mean, to me, I think the biggest surprise was what it did to Atmos music.
Oh my God.
Because like you, 9 times out of 10, whenever we've listened to that kind of content on other systems, I don't care whether it's like the most expensive pair of speakers and integrated amp and all that crap that you could throw at it. Typically, it sounds kind of like a hot mess.
Yeah.
Which isn't really, I don't think that it's the fault of the equipment we're listening to it on. I think it's the mix. It's just weird.
Yeah.
And maybe they haven't quite mastered it yet, but for whatever reason, when you're watching it, or not watching it, but when you're listening to that kind of music through the Panorama, it's freaking great.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah. Why?
Why is it good? Like, how are they getting this right?
Yeah.
But the only other thing that I want to add is how excited I am as a Bowers and Wilkins fan, being able to listen to something like the soundbar and like you've sort of alluded to, like feeling like, oh, that's that thing that I like about this brand. I hear it in this particular soundbar. Now we haven't yet been able to hear, the newer Diamond series speakers yet. Hopefully,
the 800 series, yeah.
Hopefully we'll
get that opportunity.
Yeah, I would love to get that opportunity. But I am happy that the brand hasn't walked away from what I think you have always, or what you thought you've known the sound to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm with you. I mean, that's one of the first things I jotted down in my notebook, really. When listening to like Norah Jones, I was like, here it is. It's here. It's right here. This is, and it made me feel so good, and it made me happy, while also simultaneously confusing me, because I'm confident that there may be different sets of teams and things like that at play and work at Bowers and Wilkins, and the 600 was such a departure, in my opinion, it was such a departure for them. It's nice to know that it's still that house sound is still there. And I hope, as new products come out, this being their latest one, their newest one, I hope that they're more in line with this than maybe the 600 was,
a freak accident.
I don't want to call it a freak accident, but maybe they tried something and they went too far, and maybe some of the feedback, I know we weren't the only ones, they've kind of corrected course. And a lot of companies do this, Klipsch in particular, they sort of make these little incremental changes based on people's reactions. And so maybe that's what's happened here. I don't know. It's not like they sent me a gift basket after the 600 and said, you know what, you're right.
What? I'm shocked.
But no, honestly, this is a good sounding product, and it renews my faith in the brand. And I'm really excited to now have this experience, and now I want more. And so hopefully we'll get to try something else, Yeah. So that is now our review of Bowers and Wilkins Panorama 3 Soundbar. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, I have a question of the day. And it's not so much about the Panorama 3, because the Panorama 3 really opened up my eyes to Dolby Atmos music. So I am curious, what do you guys think of Dolby Atmos music? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us thank you all so very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile. And one more thing, I would like to thank this video's sponsor, Bespoke Post. To save 20% off your first box, go to bespokepost.com/Robinson20 or use coupon code Robinson20 at checkout. And thank you, Bespoke Post, for sponsoring this video. Now that's it. Okay, so remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.